Hi, you're watching a very special recording of Agenda AWANI right here in Hanoi, Vietnam. Why? Because this is the venue at the National Convention Center for the 27th WEF ASEAN. So I'm just going to go straight because it's not often I get to sit with Malaysian representative at WEF who understands IT, who understands about telecommunication and of course content. And 4IR, ASEAN and Entrepreneurship has been the theme for the last 3 days discussed here, from the technology side, from the civil society side, from the business side. I guess Tan Sri Jamaluddin of Axiata is the correct person for that. Also, because in Malaysia, you've got to bridge all that. But Jago Kampung, that is not good enough anymore. Yeah. So we have to look global and international. Start with our region first. Axiata is in ASEAN as a footprint plus, you know, Bangladesh and stuff. So I'm just going to go straight to you, Tan Sri, on that matter. Your quick take, because last year you were co-chair, so you know you can bring from the last year's point to this year's point on where are we in terms of, you know, relying on entrepreneurship to not only survive the onslaught of the fourth industrial revolution tsunami, but we want to surf on top of it and champion it, at least for our nation and region.
I presume when you say where are we, is ASEAN or Malaysia?
Malaysia and ASEAN.
Malaysia and ASEAN. But before I need to correct a bit what you said. You know, I spent, what, 17 years in IT industry, 20 years in telco industry. Every time I think I know and a bit, I realize that I don't know anything, right? This industry is moving so fast, you know. Just when I have a bit of grasp on IR 4.0, then evolution of blockchain, evolution of new concept, and I have to catch up all over again. So, no, I don't know much, just to correct what you just said, unfortunately. But anyway, where we are, if I can step back a bit, if I look at, there are two components of this whole IR 4.0. One are the basic technologies, from cloud to virtualization to artificial intelligence to VR and AR to big data and all that stuff. That's one aspect. But the technology that's, you know, that has kind of been developed over the last few years also enables what we call digital mindset and concepts. From crowdsourcing, I mentioned blockchain earlier, to the concept of analytics and segmentation of one and so on. So this whole IR 4.0 is changing the landscape directly and indirectly and enable something differently. So I want to put that in context. Now the question therefore, where are we? Back to your question. If you look at Malaysia, and let's talk about ASEAN in general, we are actually, if you look at every element, we are implementing. You know, there's so many companies within our group. I can see within the industry that we are operating in, and also outside our industry. If I can be specific, you look at big data. Practically most companies I talk to have some sort or another, some trying to implement or have implemented big data. You look at AI, chatbots, and all those things. I wouldn't say most, many of the customer centers are already implementing chatbots, right? We maybe one step ahead. Apart from chatbots, even our network planning used to be done 100% by people. Now we have AI and machine learning tools to kind of redesign a network with some human intervention. So we have progressed slightly more. If you look at IoTs, smart city, well, of course, it depends from country to another, right? Singapore is quite advanced in smart city. We are catching up a bit, and some countries are perhaps a bit behind. And if you look at the other concepts from crowdsourcing to blockchain, there are kind of mixed. So I guess it's a long way to answer your question. We are generally in the early days, and it varies country by country and varies by area and area. But if I can just summarize, we are early days. We are quite behind actually, if you look at it compared to the North Asia, the Koreans and the Japanese, and the Europe and United States perhaps. We are quite behind in that respect. maybe not way behind, but quite behind.
Okay.
And we have a lot to catch up.
Tan Sri, you know, in follow-up to that, this is the first WEF in the spirit of Malaysia Baru. You know, we sort of have a reset ourselves. And I think it's good because every reset gives a time of rethinking, you know, and assessing things. So as long as we're looking at, you know, sort of a new slate to start with, I want to put across this point because having going to some panels and listening to others is the focus now that we have in our country still very much Malaysia-centric, when ideas around here, yesterday, the press conference, one of the co-chair is the Minister of Information and Communication of Vietnam. And he just put it simple, 3 things that will drive the theme for ASEAN. One, he said, 1 local rate for the whole of ASEAN. I remember asking you this during the co-chair of last year's PC. And then he said 1 university for the 4th Industrial Revolution, combined for ASEAN. And it's this kind of thing. Maybe we need execution level, big ideas for the people to see. Because if we're looking at the kids in school in Malaysia, in secondary or primary school, how many are talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution? They would probably more be occupied with the consumer services and products of 4IR. But in order for entrepreneurship from Malaysia and other 9 ASEAN countries to flourish, we need to put the idea of 4IR and entrepreneurship. So I need your views on that.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of questions in one
an
one
overview,
breath, right? So let's talk about, you know, of course I won't be talking too much about the Malaysia Baru per se, because a lot, as we see today, in more political development and governance and so on and so forth. That's good, and that's one aspect of that, you know, I won't touch upon. But if you look at, is there any indication that we as a country, Malaysia as a country, thinking more from a ASEAN or group of companies rather than Malaysia? If I can be frank, I don't see enough of that.
Correct.
Right? I think we are still thinking about Malaysia on its own in isolation. You're absolutely right. In fact, yesterday we had 2 days ago we had this workshop, WEF workshop. Okay. There are 5 task forces in the workshop to look at cybersecurity, to look at data privacy, to look at e-commerce and a few others. And the idea is exactly what you kind of alluded to. How do we look at it not from a country point of view, not a Jago Kampung point of view, but look at least from ASEAN point of view. It's manageable. We cannot conquer the world, trying to do for the whole world, but at least from ASEAN point of view. And it's very minimal. To take example, e-commerce, you know, we have Boost in Malaysia where we have 3 million subscribers, but we cannot transact outside Malaysia. Similarly, Alipay is trying to come to our country. They're trying to do that, but can you transact Alipay in all the countries? You can't. So there's no interoperability of e-commerce, right? Or e-payment, rather, in this case. Sorry, I mean e-payment. Now, cybersecurity, that's something that is extremely complex. There's no such thing as being able, the moment you think you solve the problem, the cyber attacks will have new technology against you. So we also, as a group company, Axiata, we decided that we cannot do alone. We have to combine all the 6 countries into one, what we call cybersecurity operating center. It's centralized. And the ideas we want to borrow from each other because the attacks are very similar. Yes. We are advocating that across industry that we are, you know, even with our so-called competitors, we want to share data. Yes. Now, coming from an ASEAN perspective, why can't we also have a similar coordinated ASEAN effort for cybersecurity? And I can go on and on. Yes. I think the point you make is very good, that we have to now think how to do it at least as an ASEAN group of companies. I think, especially IR 4.0, we cannot in any way do it alone. Okay.
You know, the moment the minister from Vietnam said that he wanted one rate that was discussed with me, if you follow Agenda AWANI from WF in Cambodia last year. But the ASEAN University on 4IR gets to me because are we thinking about this enough? Because technology is really disrupting, and in our society, if we allow technology to supersede other stuff that we are looking at, then we will be too behind to make real change and adapt. And even adaptation is not good enough. Why beside Sadiq in the open forum to kick off WF ASEAN in Hanoi? No, he was telling the Vietnamese youngsters from university, do not adapt, just create new stuff. But it's easier said than done in a sense, because looking at Malaysia, looking at Southeast Asia, convergence is really, really coming. Netflix, for example, Airbnb, the taxi drivers has already gone on the streets. And I want to get your views on that, because you plan not only for ASEAN, but also beyond that. How do you prepare for somebody, a 21-year-old or 19-year-old could just come up with something and then disrupt everything?
That's another tough question, actually. It's a very big question. Let me talk about ourselves first, and then I relate back to your question. So this whole notion of disruptions and new technologies and adoption and creation, as you mentioned, is affecting everybody, right? So about 5 years ago by now, we have decided that we have two extreme choices. One is that we go big time and invest billions into the world of digital and see what happens. In our industry, Singtel is doing that, Telefonica and many others. Huge majority even then, and even up to extent today, are the other extreme, where they say, okay, I'm not going to do anything like that, but I'm going to just digitize internally, but rather than disrupt others, right? We decided to do something in the middle, where we say, okay, let's look at our company. I said, there's an area we've been disrupted by the OTT, the WhatsApp destroyed practically our text SMS business, the WhatsApp and all the related technologies. Voice, initially something else, the Skypes and likes, then WhatsApp practically and destroy our voice business. And those are practically 95% or more of our revenue and 100% of profit. Can you imagine how bad we were affected? So internally, we have to digitize our company. I can talk more about it, but from a mindset, from a products and services, processes, every aspect of how we run a business, to incorporate the concept of and the mindset and the behavior of a digital company. New products, how we interface with the customer with apps. People can interact. In fact, we have one product we launched through another organization where you can, you don't have to be even in our store. We can deliver you A to Z. Our processes now, internally we're using a lot of apps to run, our HR processes, and so on and on. So we can go in detail later on. So that's internally. But unlike that, most companies, practically all in our industry and many companies are doing similar things. How to digitize, right? The operations, the processes of the company. But on top of that, we said, okay, we've been disrupted. How about we disrupt others too? How about we disrupt and learn how to be a disruptor? Of course, we are not going to invest as big as the Telefonica billions, right? We decided to put money, to the tune of 150 million US to be spent over 3 to 5 years, and try to disrupt. So we started with about 6 verticals. But to cut it short, the vertical that we're making, we probably make life difficult for others, one is fintech, right? We have arguably the largest number of subscribers today, 3 million plus. We have most merchants already on board, and we are trying to disrupt in the financial institution, right? And we are going, today is e-payment, tomorrow we're going to microcredit, micro insurance, micro savings, and micro remittance. In fact, we are doing that already in Sri Lanka. We even bought a small bank, a tiny little bank, where you just want the licenses to be able to do all of that. And we are doing a bit of that in Malaysia and in Indonesia. So then we disrupt the industry. Maybe not in a big way yet, but we are beginning to. And then the second one, we disrupt the advertising industry. We build a digital advertising company, and it's actually arguably one of the largest in Southeast Asia, where we are doing the digitization of advertising. How do we get into the value chain of the whole entire advertising and compete against some of the traditional advertising company? We're doing that.
You're
right?
even going against Google and Facebook on that?
Well, in that sense, we compete and we actually their customers.
Okay.
They are our customers. We are actually placing our ads
on their platform.
On their platform, but with highly analytical tools to do better than even themselves. Okay. In fact, they are our customers. Google is our customer, Facebook is our customer, and we can argue it's not really a customer, it's a partner, where we place ads on behalf of our customers into Google and Facebook as their inventory.
I see.
Right?
And then you reap data from there.
Because we have the data that we have, that we can do a much better. In fact, we disrupt the digital the advertising industry, where even we disrupt the digital advertising industry, who for longest time will charge the customers in terms of like how many clicks then you charge, right?
Yes.
We say, hey, why not? Why click? We don't charge clicks anymore. We charge outcome. How much sales you can get from that advertisement. That is a big disruption by itself.
It's a jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump. So in other words, I don't care how many clicks, and you don't care either.
Yes.
But you want the outcome. How many sales that you created from that particular campaign?
Correct.
We are doing that. Then the last one we build, it's not a disruption, we build what we call digital platform to allow all companies to access all information within what we have. Of course, with respect to data privacy, such that they don't have to have all kinds of applications to access the data of location data, customer billing and all that. They just access our API, a layer. It's almost like you don't have to know where all the wires in this building, as long as you can conform to the 3-pin plug, you're done. You don't care. That's what we're doing.
You link, you attach, you in, yeah.
So I guess my point I want to drive at is that today in the world of running a business, you got to disrupt internally, but you got to also play the game that you've been disrupted. Why not disrupt others too?
Okay, cool.
And in the process, hopefully, we can learn and bring back to our running our business, because now we know how the disruptors are thinking about us.
Correct. Correct. You are still watching a very specially recorded session of Agenda AWANI right here in Hanoi, Vietnam, at the World Economic Forum, ASEAN. And Tan Sri Jamaluddin is still with me, and I'm going to go straight to the point that convergence, transformation, or even adaptation is easy to say, but how do you execute it on ground when you already have preset ways, SOPs, KPIs, and you want to move a company that might have had an element of the third industrial revolution or even a semblance of legacy from the second industrial revolution to the disruptive new? How do you do it, Tan Sri, not only in one company, but a group of companies across multiple countries?
With a lot of difficulty. In fact, sometimes I feel that I want to hit my head against the wall trying to solve this problem. It is extremely challenging. You know, sometimes I think if I can physically do a surgery on everybody's brain, that might be the fastest solution, and then we are done, right?
Yes.
And then insert whatever chips required into everybody's brain. But unfortunately, you know, it can't be done. So yeah, you're right, that's tough. In fact, I give you a couple of examples how frustrating it can be, at the risk of showing our own weakness, right? But I'll do it anyway. So about 6 years ago, even up as far as maybe 5 years ago, sorry, let me backtrack. For the last 20, 30 years of this industry, telecom industry, we do what we call a drive test to check on the quality of network in specific area or areas, right? Okay. So we actually literally the car driving and then test, okay, the network is okay, fine here and all that. We send people out on the ground, on the field, go to the building and check, which is something we have to do because we have what they call a network operating center that look at all the network elements and the performance, but it's always good to do that, right? Now, even this is predated Ookla and all the what do you call it, the apps that you can do to check your speed, predated that, and I said, you know, and then I heard about Waze. Well, I was using Waze myself, not heard. I said, why can't, instead of sending hundreds of drivers to check, why don't we get in Malaysia, for example, 11 million subscribers to do for us? If Waze can do it, why can't we do it? And of course, the argument against that, this is where I said it's very difficult that, oh, people won't do it. But then again, in Waze, people do it voluntarily, right? And yes, they even put where the roadblocks, where the police are and all
yes,
that, the police, where the police are and all that. So I think it can be done. It took us 3 years later to get it off the ground in all our operating companies. 3 years. So you can see how tough. And then we bought a company, a small little investment in the United States, where I found something interesting. We talk about channel dealers, physical dealers all over. Yep. What they have done is they actually they do crowdsourcing of channels. And it's interesting when I said, what do you mean by that? If I have 1,000 or 10,000, let's say you have 10,000 Facebook users, wow, why can't you be our channel? After all, they trust you more than all the ads, right? Okay. And if you are in 1,000 or 2,000, what do you call it, Twitter's account, right? Followers, why not? So, and then, okay, I'm still working on this with my team, trying to do this kind of thing, right? And I give you last example. We had a debate on how many products, how many campaigns below the line that we can launch every month and all that. There's a huge argument said, no, we cannot, the 80-20 rule, this is the old mindset, 80-20 rule, because we cannot launch too many because a lot of people have to think about what are the programs required. Yes. Then this was about 2 years ago. I said, there's such thing as machine learning. There's such thing as artificial intelligence. Why can't we program it such that the program will launch for us? We think of the general scheme, the program will learn and launch without human intervention. So we can run thousands or millions. In fact, we can, everyone, if I have 11 million subscribers, everyone will have their own offering. Why can't we do that? Why do we have to think 80-20, where it doesn't apply in this case? Because the world has changed. Yes. So I guess those are the 3 real-life frustration, illustration to show that it is tough to get people who have been thinking the last 30 years one way and trying to move them to think digitally, right?
Thank you so much, Tan Sri Amanuddin. It's been a pleasure always.
Thank you.
With you. That's all the time we have for today at the World Comic Forum ASEAN 2018 in Hanoi. We'll catch you another episode very, very soon. But I think you shouldn't just look at Celcom or Axiata just from an employee or consumer perspective. It might just be a new balance of between the old and young for our own way interpreting Silicon Valley. Not to create Silicon Valley, but companies that can beat companies from Silicon Valley. See you again.